On this episode of Plastic Surgery Uncensored, we're going to be joined by a patient of mine, Vanessa, from Italy. We're going to be talking about COVID-19, the obstacles, the challenges, and the fears associated with doing cosmetic surgery during the pandemic. Make sure to tune in. I think you're going to find this a very interesting episode of Plastic Surgery Uncensored. Welcome to another episode of Plastic Surgery Uncensored. I'm your host, Dr. Roddy Raban, and today I am being joined by a very dear patient, Vanessa, all the way from Italia. She's joining me from Italy, and we're going to be chatting about not only her journey, her weight loss journey, her surgery journey, but more importantly, we're going to be discussing COVID-19, the challenges that have arisen as a result of it, her resilience and determination to not allow this pandemic to spoil her plans, and how we navigated COVID-19 safely and successfully. So I'm super excited. Vanessa, welcome. How are you? Come stai?
I'm very well. Sto bene, grazie. Voi?
I love that accent. It's fantastic.
I'm
bene,
well.
I'm bene. Of course, you are incredibly tan. You just gave me a little view of your gorgeous view from outside of your apartment of the ocean in Italy. Let's dive in and let's tell a little bit about who you are in terms of your journey, personal journey. I know that, you were at one point in time very overweight, and at some juncture you decided enough is enough, and you made that disciplinary decision to work your way down. And then we're subsequently left with, as are most people who lose a substantial amount of weight, with some redundancy of skin, etc., which we've had many a show about. And you decided it was you want to continue on your journey. It just so happened that your journey coincided with a pandemic. And so why don't you tell us a little about where you started and how you got here?
So basically, I was overweight for a majority of my life, starting from very young. And then my weight kept augmenting and augmenting because I never really knew much about nutrition. And you have those outside factors that go hand in hand with that. But then it got to a certain point when I was 25 when I decided, okay, I'm not going to be like this anymore. And it was something that was so trivial too. I wasn't going to do a scuba dive because I didn't think the wetsuit was going to fit me. And when that happened...
That's interesting. So stop for a moment, because I think what happens is, we all wonder in our own lives, there are moments in which we change direction, whatever that is, the way we spend money, the way we interact with our loved ones, the abusive relationship we're in. I mean, there's thousands of choices we make in our lives that are critical and pivotal, but then there's just the thing that triggered it. And in weight loss, as you had mentioned, many times it's something, as you said, trivial, but it was just like, it was the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And if I may ask, what was your max weight? What did you weigh at your peak?
My max weight was 275 pounds.
Okay, and how tall are you?
I'm 5'6".
So 5'6", 275. And of course, as most people know, that doesn't happen overnight. That's a gradual process that occurs through life, and it's compounded by life's challenges, compounded by self-esteem, etc. And then one day you decided you wanted to go scuba diving, and you realized, well, I don't know that if this wetsuit's going to fit. And so you said, no more. So then what did you do?
No, actually, I didn't think it was going to, but the skipper was so determined to get me into the water. And I said, no. And then he said, and he was a very robust man too. And he says, look, if it fits me, it's going to fit you. You just got to soak it first, and then you'll slip right in. It's like a glove. And I said, okay, if I do it, will you get off my back? And he says, yeah. So I did it, and it was life-changing. Scuba diving is something that was just absolutely amazing. And it was that point where I realized that my weight almost kept me back from experiencing something that changed my life. And it was such an amazing experience. But then, I thank the person that I was, because that person helped me do so much in life, and it made me a very confident person. But then it got to a point where I had to shed that skin, because at that point it was holding me back. So I thank it, but at the same time, it was time to let that person go. And I realized
that's journey, that's life. And that's very good. That's very, that's very mature of you to recognize, which is there was a time and a place for certain things, and there's a time and place to move on. So what did you do? The $64 million question is, what do you currently weigh?
I currently weigh Oh, geez. I think it's 170.
Okay, so 100 pounds or more. That's
Yes.
not a small task. People are having a hard time losing 15 pounds during COVID, and you had lost 100 pounds. Over what period of time did you lose the weight?
I think it could be 160 now. I don't remember. I haven't weighed myself. I want to wait till the swelling goes down.
Right. So, but over what period of time did you make the journey from 270s to the 160s?
I did that in 8 months.
Wow. So 8 months. So if you do the math,
Yeah.
if you do that, that's about 15 pounds a month, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that is actually an incredibly doable and healthy weight loss journey. So what did you, everyone listening is gonna be like, oh my God, how did she do that? I want to lose 10 pounds and I can't. What did you do to lose that weight?
Who would have thought it was diet and exercise?
Oh my God, come on now. Don't tell me that garbage. You didn't take stimulants. You didn't do find a shaman to help you. You actually did diet and exercise? Come on.
I actually did diet and exercise, and it actually worked. It was the best thing. But a big part of that too is being incredibly, incredibly disciplined. So cutting out all of those things.
Give me your routine. So you decided, Scuba got back and you're like, no more. And then so put it into words, specifics. Because what happens is that for a lot of people, they know they've heard diet and exercise. I mean, we've said it from the beginning of time. The question is, what specifically did you do? Did you chop up your food and put it in little containers? Did you weigh them out? Did you go to Weight Watchers? What did you do?
So basically when I got back, because I did the scuba diving experience in Australia, and it was when I got home when I realized I can't lose weight abroad. I was living in Australia at the time. I can't lose it abroad. So I went home and I saw that my mom had success losing weight. My brother had success, but they also did the bariatric surgeon. I did not want to do that because I'm very averse to pain. And I just said, let me try it, diet and exercise, and let me see how this goes. And so I just cut out all of the fried food, all prepared foods, prepared in the sense of processed foods, and beer, alcohol, absolutely zero. Just cut it all out. And I just went to a whole foods diet. So whole foods, but also reading a lot about nutrition at the same time. So it was a lot of proteins, white meats, a lot of vegetables, very few carbs.
Sounds incredibly novel and unusual. What do you mean you ate healthy food and cut out the crap and you lost weight?
Yeah.
I have to write that down. So the bottom line is that you managed, as have thousands of people, to find the discipline to do what we already know. You didn't break ground. You didn't reinvent the wheel. You simply took what we've known for centuries, which is if I eat better, I'll lose weight. If I cut out some of the crap, I'll lose weight. And of course, you supplement it with some exercise. The exercise never makes you lose weight.
A lot of exercise.
It's always diet followed by the exercise. And then you got to your nadir. And so you were at 170 pounds, and then you realize, okay, I feel great. And in clothes, I look pretty good. But I have this redundancy of skin that I perhaps hadn't anticipated. And that skin is accumulating in various places. And let's just chat about what your main area was around your waist and trunk region. So then so tell me about that aspect. So you lost all this weight, and people are often not prepared. They think, okay, if I lose 100 pounds, life is going to be amazing. And you're only sort of halfway through the journey. So what happened after you lost 100 pounds of weight? What did you look at yourself?
Yeah, well, that's part of what they don't tell you, is that you're going to have all of this excess skin. I saw my mom. I saw that she had excess skin. I saw my brother had excess skin. And that's why I supplemented it with a lot of exercise, because I didn't want the bat wings. I didn't want the super saggy thighs and everything. So I said, okay, let me lift weights. Let me tone as well at the same time. But that midsection, there's no coming back from that. My skin was, and that's where I carried most of my weight, was in my midsection. So then once it just deflated, it was just kind of demoralizing, because you realize that you've done all of this work, that you've put time, like blood, tears, sweat, everything into it. And it's just, you're not where you want to be, because I still saw my stomach. And even though I had lost the weight, I still saw the saggy skin. And to me, in my head, I was still overweight, and I couldn't shake that. It still made me feel like I wasn't pretty, all of these things that just start running through your head. And then you have to kind of reach down deep and pull out the good stuff of like, well, look at what I have accomplished. But then there's still that other voice that says, yeah, but look at your skin, look at what you did. And that's when it's
that's quite common. And I think what you stress is a very important part that people who are on a weight loss journey need to be aware. There's a distinction between losing 10 to 15 pounds and losing 50 and or more pounds. There's a term for it called massive weight loss. And the term basically is a unique distinction between you get to a place where when you lose a certain amount of weight, a substantial amount of weight, that you will be invariably left with some looseness of skin in areas that are not going to be desirable. And if you are bothered by them, then you're going to need the assistance of someone to remove them. You could not make the skin go away by diet. You cannot make the skin go away by exercising. And interestingly enough, the more weight you lose, the worse it gets. So you decided, okay, I'm going to get rid of this skin. And then you started doing, presumably, some homework. What are my options? And then you concluded that you needed to excise it or remove it or cut it off through some type of plastic surgery. So then now you're in Italy at the time?
Yes, I am.
So, and then you decide, God, I want to do this. And you're like, oh crap, there's a pandemic going on. The world is upside down. How unfortunate that the time that you decided that you wanted to do this in your life coincided with arguably one of the worst times in history. Most people have decided as a result of COVID to surrender and have said, well, this virus, there's nothing I can do. I have to forego my dreams for the time being till it passes, 1 year, 2 year, whatever it is. But yet you kind of just were kind of resilient and you said, no, I have this excess skin. Yeah, I know it's a pandemic. And yes, I know I'm in another country, but no, I'm not going to sit with this. So what did you do?
Yeah. So I'm very resilient. And if I have... if I have a goal in my head, I will accomplish it, just as I did with the weight loss. But let's not forget that between losing that weight and actually deciding to do the full body lift, there had been, I think it was 7 years had elapsed in between. And so, yeah, it took a long time for me to finally decide I'm going to do it. It wasn't something that I just decided overnight or 6 months or no, it took me a long time to finally say, okay, I'm ready to do this. But yeah, doing it during the I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so okay, even better. So we always recommend to patients lose their weight, maintain it, and stay off for as long as they can. And in your instance, you did that. So then you decided that you wanted to have the surgery. I'm assuming that when you decided you want to do surgery, you had done your homework and you had identified that, say you wanted to come to LA or Beverly Hills, and you and I had connected and you want to do it. What happened to your mindset when you decided you want to do it, and it turned out that at the same time that you want to do this, there was a pandemic going on? Because at the end of the day, what you ended up having your body lift during the pandemic, right? COVID-19 is in full effect. And there's a lot of people that have decided to hold off, to prevent this, to not do that. And the topic of today's discussion is, what do I do with this COVID? It's not going away. How do I manage some of the things that I want to do, in this instance, the surgery? So what happened when you realized that you wanted to do the surgery and there was COVID? Did you say, forget it? How did you manage that aspect?
No, managing that, I knew I was going to do it, but then it was just navigating how I was going to do it. And a lot of it came with obviously speaking to your staff, speaking with you, and figuring out exactly how we could proceed with this. Because for me, I couldn't put this dream, I couldn't put it off. It wasn't an option. It was either now or never, because it was just perfect timing in the sense that my husband was home so he could watch the dog. I knew I would have to go home for an extended amount of time, and everything just fit well before COVID. And then COVID hit, and then I had to decide, okay, can I live like this, or will I try and negotiate, or not negotiate, but try and navigate through this pandemic? And so that was my decision, was to do that. And a lot of it just came down to kind of being very flexible and really trying to understand what's going on. But it was actually really difficult, because you don't know, because you think, okay, well, let me postpone my plane ticket, but how long do I have to postpone it? How long can this be postponed? My window of opportunity was closing And then that's when it came down to speaking to your staff and figuring out how and when I could do it.
So at the time, people know that the pandemic really was a hot fire in Italy at the beginning. It was one of the top 2 places. So here you are thinking about doing surgery. I'm sure it crossed your mind like, wow, this is crazy. Is this a good decision? Is this a right decision? I'm sure the people must have said something to you like, Vanessa, you're crazy. Why the hell are you doing this now? Well, you did it. And so what was your response to people about that?
Well, it was...
Or were you scared?
Because I was kind of scared because we were in lockdown really hard here in Italy. And I was getting really, really nervous because we did postpone. And by almost, I think it was a month and a half or 2 months, and we postponed. But even the trains hadn't even opened up. My husband still wasn't able to come home. So now I have a dog. I have this procedure planned and I need to go home, but my husband still wasn't home. And so it was very nerve-wracking. But a lot of it too was just, sometimes you just got to put things up to the universe and say, okay, this is my dream. This is what I want. Please help me. And a lot of it is just not really listening to what people say, because there was a lot of negativity. Why are you doing this? You should just stay there, or you don't need to do this. But at the same time, I had to do it. I needed to, for myself, I needed to do it.
Yeah. And I think this is what the real cornerstone of our discussion, which is when you want to do something of this magnitude, aesthetic surgery and other things as well, but let's just focus on aesthetic surgery. There will be constantly things that pop up that will try to derail you constantly. Family, finances, work, this, that, the other. And if you really are looking for that perfect moment in your life, you're going to look back and 10 years will have gone by, and whatever has been bothering you is going to continue to bother you. So here we have you on this conversation because this exemplifies this better than anything. If you had postponed and or canceled your surgery, it would have made perfect sense. It was a goddamn pandemic and you were in Italy. Yet you, of all people, forged forward because you knew it was your moment. And you never know when you would have done this. Yes, you could have had a complication, and there's going to be people that have naysayers, but we obviously wouldn't have done your surgery if we felt it was going to be dangerous. When we come back, we're going to talk about the precautions that we took for COVID that allowed you to not only have surgery and do well, but to thrive. And you look utterly amazing. And you are now a testimony that if you want it and you do your homework and you do it correctly, you can surpass almost any obstacle, even a pandemic. So I want everybody to tune back. When we get back, we're going to talk about how did you get from Italy to LA and what were the things that we did to make sure that you did amazing during this pandemic. We're back on Plastic Surgery Uncensored with Dr. Roddy Raban and my guest Vanessa. We were just talking about COVID-19 and, getting from Italy to LA. So you obviously had a lot of obstacles and a lot of things telling you now is not the time, yet you were adamant that, this was my window. So you made your way to LA. And then let's talk about all the things that you had to do during COVID-19 that maybe made this even more challenging than if you would have come at any other time in life. So talk to me about some of the obstacles that you had to jump, the hoops you had to jump through as a result of it.
Okay, so even just leaving Italy, I had to fill out a lot of declarations, authorization forms, and I had to hand those over when I got to the train station. And those are never easy because they look at you, they want to know, what is your reason for leaving? Do you have a valid reason? Otherwise you can't go. And I did have a valid reason. And so that was the first part. Just even getting to the airport was an obstacle. And then they canceled my flights and they didn't let me know. So that was another obstacle. And then just getting to London, I had to buy another flight. And then once I got there, they were able to change the next flight. And even that was kind of eerie because when you travel during the pandemic, in a place like Heathrow, you see nobody. It's very, very eerie. And on the flight,
what were you doing what precautions were you taking at the time? You were wearing a mask, I'm assuming.
I was wearing a mask. I was wearing gloves. I even had a full face mask just in case there were too many people on the flight, but there were only 12 people, but I was prepared to wear a full face mask.
So then what I'm going to underscore is, rather than making it sound like you were, reckless, you were prepared. You wouldn't have traveled if traveling was known to kill you. The COVID-19 virus is omnipotent and present everywhere. But it is well documented that if you do the right things, the probability of you getting COVID is significantly smaller than if you ignore it. So if you wear a mask, you wear gloves, you wash your hands, you don't touch your face, and you stay away from people, meaning at least 6 feet away, you can very safely navigate the world and not allow this virus to crush you and kill you. And so what you're demonstrating is that you were able to make and navigate the overwhelming obstacles that kept popping up because this was something that life was calling for you to do. And why I think this particular journey of yours is inspiring is, yes, it educates people. What do I do now during COVID? But what I want to underscore is that you will constantly have things that will try to throw you off your game when it comes to fulfilling your prophecy of aesthetic surgery. Guilt, money, this, that, your ex, your blah, blah, blah. But if you are determined as you were, then you find the way. So you get to LA, and then what then? So tell me what you do.
So I get to LA, but I'm from San Diego. So my brother picked me up from LA. We went back to San Diego. And in those 2 weeks, I actually then had to schedule the COVID nasal swab to be able to have the procedure done. And a lot of, what happened? Oh, there were the riots as well. There was George Floyd, and then there were the riots.
So you had riots also preventing you from having surgery. So basically it's like the moon and the stars are telling you, don't do it.
Oh, and there was the first Airbnb that had canceled. She canceled my reservation. And so that was
so you were sleeping in the streets.
Yeah, basically in the streets where there were riots. So I had to schedule another Airbnb, and that was difficult because even finding an Airbnb in Los Angeles during the pandemic, something that was open, was difficult, and especially in that area because I wanted to be in the area where the procedure would be done.
Right.
And so that was another.
Did you quarantine when you obviously you said 14 days when you arrived, so you quarantined for that period of time, right?
Yes, I did.
Right. So that's another step that you take. So you arrive from another country. You don't just get into another country and then just we get you off the plane and here you are having surgery. So for those listening, the steps that you take during COVID is that you're going to quarantine. If you come from out of the country, which we have, I don't know, about 30% of my patients are from out of the country. You self-isolate for, 14 days or so. And then you were talking about a nasal swab, which is now what we do with every single patient who's undergoing surgery. So again, we're taking extreme measures to make sure that to the extent that we can, that you are navigating this as safely as possible during this period of time, which is you get a nasal swab, which I know from having done it is very, very unpleasant.
Yes, to say the least.
And they stick a big old, cotton tip applicator into your posterior nasal pharynx, spin it around for, 10 seconds till you want to kill yourself and cry. But at the end of the day, you get, you get the results. So you did that. You found an Airbnb. You navigated through the riots. You dealt with the COVID. Anything else? Any other obstacles trying to throw you off your game?
I think at that point, that was it. And then it was game day.
Okay. So you got to game day. And remember, initially, you and I had spoken and you had lost a certain amount of weight. And I had said to you, you needed an extended.
That's right.
You had an extended tummy tuck, right? And
yes.
Then I saw you and I said, you lost more weight. You look more flaccid. You're not, you'll do okay if we do an extended tummy tuck. But I really think you need a body lift, a circumferential body lift. So there was one more obstacle, which is you had all of a sudden a modification or a change in your surgical plan, which for many patients will throw them into a tailspin. If you have your mind set on having X and then the doctor tells you how many days before we saw you?
I think that like a week before.
Yeah, a week before, because you finally flew in and I could physically examine you, that you need Y. Well, shit. I mean, someone's going to be like, oh my God. A, it was something you weren't planning. B, it was more expensive. And C, it was going to be a longer, more invasive surgery. Again, you handled it with such a level of poise and stride. And you said, you weighed out the options and you said, okay, so my options are X or Y. And you believe, Dr. Rahman, that Y would be better for me given my current weight and my current physical status. and you
That's
and you
correct.
and you made the dive. And instead of having a tummy tuck, which would have been okay, but nowhere near as effective for the amount of weight that you had lost, and you had a body lift, and you had the surgery. How long was the surgery?
The surgery was 6 hours, I believe.
It was about 7.
7. Okay.
Yes, to you it seemed like it was 12 minutes, but it was 7 hours. And um, then you recovered for how long did you recover before you headed back to Italy?
Oh, I was for 6 weeks.
So
For 6 weeks.
you hung out here for 6 weeks, which is not necessary, but given the pandemic, your family, your husband, you're this, you did the right thing, which is you just stayed put and let us take care of you. Most patients, if this were not such a chaotic time, could leave up to 2 weeks, but obviously the more time you spend, the better. And
Yeah.
what happened to you? What did you look like? I remember the minute I took everything off, the first time at 6 days. Tell the people, you went through so many challenges from the minute, just think about the journey from 275 to the minute the bandages come off.
Oh, it's just, you can't even put that feeling into words. It's everything that you've worked for, but in all of those obstacles, all of those challenges, and then you finally get to the point where you get to see the results. And then at that point, they're not even the final results. These are the intermediate results. But it was just something that you dream of. You can't even put it into words what it is that you feel, but you see the difference. It's such an incredible feeling just to see that just kind of go away. It's like bricks have been lifted off of your chest, just like, finally I did it. Oh my God, it's happened. This is just amazing. And it's just tears is basically what it is. Tears of joy and
a sense of accomplishment. I mean, the thing is that you
yes.
made it to the finish line. And how far out are you now?
Now I am nearly 12 weeks out of surgery.
12 weeks. So you are
Yes.
back in Italy. You are functioning.
Yes.
You are noticing the results getting better and better. You're noticing
Yes.
your body becoming yours again, and forming and shaping, and you're exercising.
Yes.
And would you look back and say to someone who is thinking of doing surgery during the pandemic that it's worth it to find the resilience to overcome the additional obstacles? Or what do you think? Someone's going to be listening to you right now thinking, God, I really, whatever, my breasts are killing me, my back is killing me. By the way, for a lot of people, COVID is the greatest blessing ever in terms of time. Our surgery schedule is through the roof. Why? I'm working from home. My kids are home. I can wear a mask. No one can need to see me. I can work from Zoom. And for a lot of people, this is actually the most ideal time to recover. But there are people, of course, naturally that are afraid. And would you say it was worth it? Would you do it again? What would you tell your friends?
I would absolutely recommend it. Absolutely do it. I would do it again 100 times over, because it was just, there is never going to be the perfect time. There is never going to be the perfect moment. You can get as close as you can, and you just got to take the plunge. You have to do it. Yes, you should take every necessary precaution, and you should do your homework, and you should be aware of what's going on. But at the same time, you can't let it discourage you. You can't let it take over, because if it's something that you want, it's something you have to do. You have to do it. You have to do it, and that's it. There's nothing else to say. It's just, it's worth it to go after your dream and to complete what it is that you feel like you need to complete.
And I think you said it best. I can't even say it any better. I'll just reiterate it. I think your journey is one that exemplifies the basic principle behind self-preservation and self-improvement. From the moment that you were getting into that wetsuit to the moment that we took the bandages off, you'd made a determination that you were going to change the direction of your life, and you were not going to take excuses, and you were not going to allow for extraneous things outside of your control to throw you off your game. You were flexible, you modified, you adapted, you adjusted, and you eventually made it to the finish line. And at the end of the day, it's yours to embrace and it's yours to enjoy. And you're the one sitting in Italy now. You're the one wearing a nice dress. You're the one who can feel attractive and sexy and all the things that you deserve and wanted to do. And at the end, you take ownership for it. I simply was a shepherd in the middle of it, but you're the one that made it happen. And so if anything, your story is going to hopefully motivate people that if you can do it during the riots and the pandemic and all this other stuff and fly from another country, no less, then someone else with lesser obstacles can find their resilience from within to forge forward and get their dreams accomplished. Because it's now or never. You will put every day you wait is a day that you have lost having that joy in your life that you were waiting for.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much for tuning in from Italia. Oh my God, I won't even try. My wife hates when I try to make accents. She's like, all your accents sound the same. Your Indian accent, your British accent, your Italian. I'm just not an accent person. Well, I look forward to seeing you back in one of your follow-ups. Don't think that this takes the place of a follow-up. You still need to come back and I need to examine it.
Okay. I will do that.
And be well. Be well.
Thank you very much. Babe. Thank you for allowing me to share this time with you.
And we appreciate you for being along with us. And that's a wrap for Plastic Surgery Uncensored. I'm your host, Dr. Roddy Raban. I look forward to having you tune in next week with another interesting episode of Plastic Surgery Uncensored.